We don't deserve to be hurt. And a lot of times in divorce, there's like something that's happened that's very hurtful, and nobody deserves that.
I'll say this in the divorce world, but you lose your identity.
100% you do. 100%. And I think when you go into marriage, like no one goes into marriage thinking, oh, this is gonna end one day. It's the range of emotions, like everything from the negative, quote unquote, to the positive. Like there's also pieces of us that feel very relieved or happy or excited or anticipatory about what's happening. And so it's just really allowing all those emotions to come up and giving ourselves time and space to really feel through them. How do you have grace for yourself and have that self-compassion for yourself when you do have those really down days? And those down days happen. Or even just being open to the possibility of a gift down the road can be really helpful in opening up that door to more optimism and to knowing that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And there's days where you're like, I don't want to make this decision. I just want to be miserable. Like it doesn't have to be big things, but just things that are like a few minutes that are a time to tune into ourselves and provide ourselves with something really beautiful and with something that brings joy into our life.
Welcome to the Just Separated podcast. Hi, I'm Karen Oman, a thanatologist, grief counselor, divorce strategist, and co-author of the Just Separated workbook. I draw on years of personal and professional experience to guide you through the challenges of your divorce. Together, with our expert guests, we'll equip you with the clarity, resilience, and tools to take charge and move forward with confidence. Follow Just Separated and join us as we explore the many different facets of divorce. Hi, welcome to the Just Separated podcast. I'm your host, Karen Oman, co-founder of the Divorce Workshop. Today, we're going to be talking about how to reclaim self-trust and confidence after divorce. And our guest expert today is Vera Ilnyckyj. Vera helps women from life challenges like divorce and job loss into the best chapter of their lives. She guides women to reclaim their self-trust and in doing so, create a life that they love. Welcome, Vera, to the Just Separated podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Karen. I'm really happy to be here.
I want to start off by saying, to be quite honest with you, that when I left my marriage, I had zero confidence and actually not a lot of self-trust in myself. Mm-hmm. I remember laying in bed one night thinking when I was trying to leave that I don't even think I could find a job at the local variety store. And I'm an educated woman. Right? I had a degree back then and I had a post-certification. So I'm wondering in your work, what are some of the biggest reasons why women lose this trust in themselves and the confidence?
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that. And I think it's like a commonality amongst women when we go through something challenging like a divorce, that we lose our confidence. And I think the biggest piece for me anyways was that I got disconnected from my intuition and from what was best for me in my life. And I really got sucked into the negativity of the marriage and what was going on in that system. And I was trying to make things work. And so I thought I have to sacrifice and I have to make all these like decisions that weren't best for me because I wanted the marriage to work. And I lost that connection with what was actually most important to me and what my intuition was telling me. And so then when the divorce happened, I'm like, how did this actually happen? How did I get here? I'm like you, I'm an educated person. I had 2 degrees and I was a little bit older in my life. So I wasn't, young and not knowing any better. And I just kept thinking, how did I let this happen? How could I have let this happen? And that berating of ourselves, that self-blame, that questioning of our value and our worth really erodes confidence. Even more than maybe what happened in the marriage. Because what happened in my marriage is that my confidence was getting eroded by my ex-husband. And so you have that level. But then when you start doing it to yourself after and questioning, it's like, how can you build confidence and trust in yourself when you keep questioning yourself and beating yourself up? And I think that's kind of a natural thing that happens. It's like we just question ourselves so much that the self-trust and the confidence can't be can't be built up from that.
So do you think in a way we lose, you know, a lot of people say this in the divorce world, but you know, you lose your identity?
100% you do. 100%. And I think when you go into marriage, like no one goes into marriage thinking, "Oh, this is gonna end one day." We don't go into it from that perspective. We go into it, I love this person, I want to make this work, this is going to be fabulous, made this decision. And your identity does change when you get married. I mean, that's the reality of it. All of a sudden, you are a spouse, you're a wife, and so that you take on that new identity. But what happens in a marriage that's not healthy or that's not right for you is that identity isn't the right identity for you. Like you're stepping into something because you really want to make it work, or because you're getting manipulated, or because you're getting influenced by the other person or by the people around you, or societal programming of how you should be. That was the case for me anyways. I was like, well, I should be this way. Marriages are hard. I need to like make all these sacrifices and I need to make all these changes. And so all of a sudden I was taking on all these identity that wasn't really my true identity or who I really wanted to be. So yeah, you definitely lose. And so when you go through a divorce, all of a sudden you're like, who am I? I thought I was this person. I stepped into this marriage being this person and wanting to be this spouse. And now who am I? Like that's almost like taken away from you in a way. And most people question at the end of a marriage, well, who am I? Who am I now stepping out into the world? Because all of a sudden that all falls away. You're no longer a wife. You're no longer a spouse. You lose a lot of friends. You lose a lot of connections. You lose that identity of I'm in a marriage. Right now, all of a sudden you have to take on this other identity of, well, now I'm going through a divorce, or someone left me, or someone cheated on me, or something bad happened to me. So you kind of have to work your way through, well, what identity do I want to be in this next phase of my life?
Can I ask you, like, is there any, I was thinking when you were saying that, is there any, one of the things that came up to me when I was preparing for us to talk was, just because you go through a divorce, and you either were left or it was amicable or you left, the confidence doesn't come back right away, right? It's kind of I just want to say that for me, myself, it took quite a long time for me to build my confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if you see that as well in your clients.
Well, 100%. It took me a while too. Like I always say that it's a journey and it's a process. It's not like you wake up one day and you're like, I'm confident now. Like you really have to build it up. And I also think that it's a decision that you need to make. And we were talking about this loss of identity, and all of a sudden you find yourself in this like whirlwind of like, who am I? Right? How did I get here? What's next for me? And you feel like you said, I couldn't even get a job. I don't feel like I could even get a job at the local variety store. And so again, we start taking on this self-doubt, right? Well, if my marriage failed, then what else is wrong with me? And I also find, I know the case was for me, there was other things in my life that I wasn't happy with, right? I didn't love my career. So I was really questioning my purpose, right? For some people, it's other things. Maybe their health has gone off the tracks, that type of thing, right? So there's always more than one thing that's going on. And that is eroding your confidence as well. But it's definitely a process. It's a journey. Like it takes time. And I think you need to be really intentional with that. And that's where people need the support in order to help them rebuild up that confidence and rebuild up that trust. But it's also making a decision that, okay, how do I really want to show up in the world? Who do I want to be? What kind of identity do I want to create for myself as I enter in this next phase of my life? And I think for me, that's really empowering. That was really empowering when I could decide, oh, I can actually decide who I want to be now. Like, this is a great opportunity, maybe. Maybe there's a gift in all this.
So we talked about self-confidence for a bit. Can we talk a little bit about self-trust? Because they are a bit different, right? So self-trust is, to me, a little deeper because you have to trust yourself, right? Like, I don't know what your thoughts about that, but I think I really judged myself after I was in a toxic marriage. It was high conflict. And I had to work on that a lot because I said, my goodness, I picked this person, right? And I stayed for 19 years with this person. So self-trust is I had to realize that I had to work on that as well. My confidence came, tell you my story quick, is I went back and got my second degree. And that kind of helped me start feeling more confident about things. Like you said, steps. But my self-trust was also, I had to work on that. So I don't know if you want to touch down that a bit.
Yeah, and I mean they're definitely related, but really self-trust for me is about being connected to your that inner voice, being connected to your intuition and being connected to that deep down knowing of what it is that's best for you and that deep down knowing of what it is that you really want to be doing in your life and how you want to be showing up in your life. And we lose that self-trust when we make decisions and we think, oh, why did I make this decision? Knowing that it wasn't the right decision. I mean, I knew going into my marriage that it wasn't the right decision, like deep down. I didn't want to accept that on an intellectual or a logical level, but deep down, I knew. I mean, going into the church, the day of the wedding, I broke out in hives, which I never do, right? So my intuition's like trying to really tell me this isn't the right thing. And I just kept overriding that decision. Like, no, I'll make it work. Like, people can change. Like, it's too late, right? All the stories that we tell ourselves, but deep down I knew. And so it's rebuilding that trust of like, okay, it's okay. You made a decision. Maybe it wasn't the right decision. You're going to learn from it and you can make a new decision moving forward. But that's where that self-trust piece comes in. Like, okay, like what is the right decision for me? And sometimes it's a little bit of trial and error and it's a little bit of experimentation. Well, what is that intuition? Like, I get asked all the time, how do I know that it's my intuition talking to me and not another piece of me that's maybe the shadow side of me or that societal programming or conditioning or just, things that aren't really meant for me. And that's the piece that really takes some practice. And that's the journey piece, I think, after a major life change like a divorce. It's like, well, if I made a decision that was wrong, how can I make a decision that's right? And sometimes it's a little bit of like just trying it out. And maybe sometimes you won't make the right decision, and that's okay. The self-trust piece comes in knowing that you can get through that. You can make a different decision. You can learn from the decisions that you made. You don't need to be stuck in the wrong decision. And I think that's where the self-trust piece starts coming back. You're like, yeah, I can get through this. I am resilient. I am resourceful. I am strong, right? I can make things work for me. I can make a decision to move forward through this, and I can learn from this. But if you don't do that, then you're stuck in that like lack of self-trust and that doubt. And that's not a place that you really want to be in. You really want to get through that and just keep making decisions and keep taking action and just learning from them.
Which one is, with your clients, which one seems to be harder, or they're both hard?
I think they're both hard, but I think the self-trust piece is really what we question the most, is what my clients question the most. Like, how could I have made this decision? And is this the right decision for me moving forward? Like, they question then every little tiny thing that comes up for them. But that also erodes confidence, because if you're questioning every single little thing and you're too scared to take a tiny action step or take the step or do the thing that you think is going to help you move through this, that it's like this vicious cycle. If you don't take the action, then the confidence piece doesn't get built up either. And then you feel less confident, and then you're less confident to make the decision that you think is going to help you. So again, you're kind of stuck in this cycle and you're just kind of stuck. Like, I'm not doing anything. So the work that I do, and I know the work that you do, it's like helping people make the decision to do something, to step out, right? Whether it's to apply for the job or go get the therapy or go hire a coach or go, meet a group of women that are maybe going through something similar. Just go do that thing. And I'm here to be with you alongside this journey so that you don't feel so alone and you're supported in this decision. And it's amazing. Like, people will come to me and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. I feel so proud of myself. And that's what starts building the confidence, because all of a sudden you're like, oh, I did something and nothing bad happened. In fact, I met some really great people, or something really great happened, or a door opened up for me. So that starts building the confidence. And it also starts building up that self-trust where you're like, okay, I made a decision that I felt was really good for me, and it was the right decision. And it's okay. And even if it wasn't the right decision and I did it, I still did it. I took the action and did it, which builds the confidence piece. So they're really tied in together, but it really is about like starting to believe in your decision making ability and in your ability to tune into your intuition.
So I was just thinking of, when you have children and they, they're 10 years old and they have to do a project and they do it well. And that's kind of a micro moment, right? And the reason why I want to bring that up, because if you think, have you watched a child build their confidence over the years by doing little things, not always the big things. So it's the same thing for many that come out of a divorce too. It's not it's not always macro moments of, I got this executive job. It could be micro, and micro can be really, really helpful, right? And just starting to build small, because if you've come from a pretty challenging divorce or toxic marriage, for me myself, it was micro things too, right? It was the little steps I did that helped build to the bigger steps, right? So I just wanted to say that, because I don't want anyone to feel like these pressure where it's like, okay, I have to, go get my PhD, right? Like it's like it can be micro moments.
Well, and in fact, Karen, I think it needs to be micro moments, because there were times during my healing journey from the divorce where I had to make a decision multiple times a day that this is how I want to show up, that I need to make these little tiny little baby steps during the day. And that's what kind of kept me going. You know how people say like it's minute by minute some days, and it's day by day, and then it goes week by week, and then it's month by month, right? Until you kind of start feeling better and more confident in all the things. But you can't jump from where you are to like, 6 months down the road. I mean, you want to, but what do you do in the meantime? Like, what do you do when you wake up those mornings and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel so crappy today and I don't want to go to work. And I just feel this sense of grief, or I feel this sense of sadness, or I feel this sense of, losing something. Like, it's those micro moments every day. Well, I'm still going to get dressed and put my makeup on and go to work and show up as the way that I want to show up to support my team or do my job to the best of my ability. And sometimes even within the day, it has to be like, okay, here I am. I'm at work. Okay, right. I'm going to do the next thing that's going to like keep me going. So it's definitely those micro moments. Like, it's all those little steps. Those are actually the most important things.
So would you say that like the micro moments are the easiest to do to start with?
No, I don't think they're easy at all, because it's a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And there's days where you're like, I don't want to make this decision. I just want to be miserable, and I want to be blaming the other person. And I just want to feel sorry for myself. It's really easy to get sucked into that negative sort of victim mindset. And I get it. I mean, I was there too. There was days where I was like, no, this is really hard to keep moving forward. But it was also something that I was very committed to. Like, I remember the day when I said to myself, I don't want to be one of those bitter, negative, blaming people, because you can see how quickly you can get sucked into that and how detrimental it is. And I just knew I didn't want to be that kind of person. And I wrote it down. Like I said, here's the kind of woman I want to be. And every day I had to look at that list and be like, remember what you want to be. Remember who you want to be. Remember how you want to show up in your life. Now, what do you need to do to start being that person right now? And it was just like every day had to be this decision.
That's a pretty powerful tool, actually.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And it's also really empowering, because you get to decide. And I think sometimes when we go through a lot of times when you go through a divorce, we feel like our power is taken away, like our control is taken away, especially if you're going through something very tumultuous or very full of conflict. Sometimes that power, that control gets taken away from us, or we feel like it's taken away. There's stuff that is outside of our control, 100%. But it's deciding, okay, well, what is in my control? Like, what's in my control is how I want to show up. Like, what do I want to think? Right? What do I want to say? How do I want to say it? Like, those things are in our control, even though it's very challenging some days to be that person.
Yeah. And of course, you have to allow yourself, if you're having a bad day, to allow yourself to lean into that bad day, right?
Yeah.
Because there are going to be days that are, but the resiliency is to, slowly keep going on those micro steps, making those decisions, changing your mindset, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a
Changing
way.
your mindset. And I think part of that part of those micro decisions as well is, how do you nurture yourself? Right? How do you have grace for yourself and have that self-compassion for yourself when you do have those really down days? And those down days happen. So what are you going to do to nurture yourself through that? Because there's a difference between indulging in that and being self-compassionate in that. Right? So being self-compassionate is, okay, I feel really bad today. I'm going to feel the feelings. I'm going to allow those feelings to come, and I'm going to sit with them, and I'm going to let them go through my body, and I'm going to do the things that I need to do to release those emotions. And I'm going to do something healthy for myself. Or maybe I do need to have a nap or a bath or get away for the weekend, like whatever it is that you need to do. But again, it's leaning into your intuition of what is best for me right now. Like, what do I need right now to get me through this moment that's really hard? As opposed to, my life sucks, I'm a victim, I'm just going to sit here and curl up and do nothing. And that's easy to do too. And when that happens, we also need to say to ourselves, it's okay. We had a moment. It's okay. Now it's time to get off the couch and do something healthy for ourselves, do something nurturing.
Yeah, self-forgiveness and self-compassion are huge. I actually
Totally.
I'm 8 years later and I still use self-compassion on myself all the time.
Yeah, of course. We're
All the time.
humans, right? Like, we need that. We can't just, like, it's not like magically poof one day you're like, I'm confident, everything's great, and I self-trust myself. Like, this is an ongoing journey. And the more that we do self-development work and the more that we grow as people, the more the layers show up, right? The more the lessons come in, and the more we need to lean into some of these tools that we have, that we've learned. And I think that's the cool thing. Like, once you kind of have some of these tools in place that work for you, then when something else comes up, you can use that tool and use those tools. But life is like, things will come up in our life that are challenging, that we don't want to be dealing with, but they're here. And so how do you do that, right? So it's this continual journey, and self-compassion and self-forgiveness and self-nurturing are so important in all aspects of our life, no matter where you are in the journey.
So speaking of that, because you brought up tools, is what are some other tools, like we've talked about practicing self-compassion? That's a really important one. What other
Mm-hmm.
ones do you want to give our audience some good tips on how they can practice regaining confidence and regaining self-trust?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one that, something that I like to think about is creating a ritual for yourself. So, like a self-compassion ritual, as opposed to, a routine or a practice. But it just kind of has, for me, a really special, a special meaning behind it. Ritual to me just implies a specialness, right? And something sacred. And when we start looking at ourselves as like, we're special and we deserve something that's really beautiful or that's a bit luxurious. And it doesn't have to be like something massive. It could be, I'm going to buy myself fresh flowers once a week, and I'm going to really enjoy them. Or I'm going to buy myself like the best local coffee because I love coffee so much, and I'm going to enjoy the ritual of making the coffee. Or I'm going to have a bath once a week. Like, it doesn't have to be big things, but just things that are like a few minutes, that are a time to tune into ourselves and provide ourselves with something really beautiful and with something that brings joy into our life. So I think that's a really great tool that you can like decide for yourself what that could look like for you. The other one that works tremendously is creating an accomplishment list. And, I like to do this. It depends on where people are in their journey, but you can do this daily, where at the end of your day, you think, what am I really proud of myself for today? You can just ask yourself that question. If you want to journal on it, that's amazing. But if you just want to reflect on for 5 minutes, like, what did I do today that was a big win for me? That was an accomplishment. And it doesn't have to be something massive. It could just be, look, I like put clothes and makeup on and I got to work today and I didn't cry, or I, reached out to a friend and asked for help, or whatever it is for you, or I got to the gym, those types of things. But I find that starts building your confidence, because then you start seeing the wins. And especially as women, we tend to look at the things we didn't do. We have massively long to-do lists and we like to check off the boxes. But what happens is we look at, well, here's the things that I didn't check off today, or here's the things that still need to get done. And then again, we get into that pattern of like, well, I'm not good enough. I can't believe I didn't get this stuff done. Like, look at my big list. Like, I can't believe I can't get through this list. Look at other people. Like, we start going down that path versus like, why don't you look at the things you did check off? Like, why don't you look at the things that you did accomplish today? And I find that starts building that confidence muscle. And I find that's a really powerful and an easy tool that you can do and use, forever.
I love that. I have never heard of that. We've talked about gratitude, and that's been around for a long time. But this is really brilliant, actually, because you're right. We are overwhelmed. In divorce, it's overwhelming. But if you're co-parenting or parenting, even on your own, or it is a lot. And so we always go to the negative. I didn't get enough done. I forgot to sign the papers of the kids thing. I didn't do the laundry. And so this tip that you're giving us is really, really actually really good. It's a really good one.
Yeah, thanks.
Important to look at as into saying to look at it as, look what I did do instead of looking at what I didn't do, because we always go to the negative biasy, right? Instead of going, wow, considering I don't feel very good today, I still got a couple things I needed to get done. Awesome. Good job. Right?
Yeah,
like
totally. Like we have to be our own best advocate, and we need to be our own best friends. Right? Like, it's nice to get the accolades from other people, but that doesn't really build up true confidence or true self-trust. Like, it's only when we start giving ourselves that's when that true confidence start building up. So if you can give yourself a little pat on the back, like, yeah, hey man, I did a great job, right? And yeah, maybe I didn't do the laundry, but I spent a half an hour playing with the kids today. Like, that's a massive win, right? It's a huge accomplishment. And so, yeah, it just kind of puts our brains into more of a positive frequency versus the negativity bias.
Yeah, I really like that one. Do you have any others?
Well, I would also say looking at and being really open to what the gifts are from the situation that you're in, or even just being open to the possibility of a gift down the road can be really helpful in opening up that door to more optimism and to knowing that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So even just kind of reflecting on, like, what am I learning? What are the gifts that are coming into my life right now? And I know sometimes it's hard to see that, especially when we're in the middle of something like, very, very traumatic, or if there's lots of turmoil going on, if you're in court and things like that, it's really challenging to see. But if you can think about, okay, I believe there is a gift in here at some point in time, that just starts like lighting kind of that path ahead of you. So, and it gets your brain thinking in a more positive way versus like, here's all the crappy things that are happening to me. So it just starts giving you that possibility of like, okay, actually, there is something here.
So this is kind of similar to what, I'm a grief counselor, right? And so this is kind of what in complicated grief, prolonged grief disorder, when you're working with people, they call it aspirational goals. And at the beginning you go, and I had to do training in this, but at the beginning they go, as if I have any aspirational goals when I'm going through one of the hardest thing in life. Okay. Mm-hmm. But it's what you said there is, it's just to plant the seed. It doesn't mean it's going to happen right away, but if you can just plant the seed of something, like what is a goal that you may have, where what you're saying, it's almost similar, right? What's the gift here? In the grief world, we say, what's the aspirational goal? And as you said at the beginning, it's like, screw you, there's no gift here, right? But the point is even if you can just think about it, it sits there, right? Mm-hmm. And if you keep thinking about it, and over time, because you and I are we see the gifts now. I do. Mm-hmm. I didn't. It was, as you said, very hard back then. But there is like seeds you can plant. And so the gift is a good seed. And same with the aspirational goals. So I just want to connect the two because they're kind of similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think what's really interesting too is when you look at that question, even if you write it down and you just kind of look at it every day, even if you're like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. Like, I can't believe you're making me think about this. Subconsciously, it's actually getting into your subconscious. So you don't maybe understand that process or know that it's even happening. But underneath everything, your subconscious is like thinking about, what is the gift? What's the lesson? How could this be an aspirational goal for me? And the more that you look at that question or think about it, the more the subconscious can bubble up into the conscious. And I think that's the cool thing about it. And when we understand how our subconscious works and how our mind works, then you can kind of harness the power of that and start utilizing some of these tools. Even if you're like, I don't know, I can't even imagine having an aspirational goal after the death of someone, or I can't even imagine what beauty could happen out of this divorce when it's so traumatic right now. But deep down, like deep down, that answer is going to come, and it's there, and it's just eventually going to bubble up to the surface.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. I also want to mention that support systems are also very important, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's, everyone knows that, but just remind that, and also make sure you're with the right type of support
Absolutely.
systems, right?
Absolutely.
You can be, you can be in some thinking you're getting the great support, but you're not, right? So I've seen that as well. I don't know if
Absolutely.
you've seen that.
Well, and I even went through that too. Like, it's so interesting. When you're going through something, you start meeting people that are going through the same thing or a similar thing. It's kind of one of those, like, just things that happens in life. But what can happen is you can start meeting other people that are like going through a divorce. Like I did it. I was like, oh, I'm meeting all these women who are going through a divorce, but not all of them were in a growth mindset or like in a kind of wanting to be something different. Like they were in very much like negative victim mode. And then when you start getting around that a lot, you're like, oh yeah, we're just going to sit here and like, yeah, we have community of support, but we're all just going to just sit around and bitch and complain about our spouses and how hard this is. And that's actually that's not beneficial. That's not positive. So you need to really be mindful of like, are these people helping move me forward? I think it's important to have people in your life that are going through something similar so that you don't feel alone, because I hear that a lot. People will say to me, I thought I was the only one going through this, even though intellectually, that can't be true. But we feel that in the moment, like no one understands. So we need people that are like, I get it. I'm with you. I'm going through something similar. We need that too. But we also need people that have, like you and I, that have gone through it and can show the path ahead. Like it is possible to move through this and get through the other side. So we need different types of support and different levels of support. So it can't just be one community. It needs to be different types of community and different types of support. But so, yeah, that's a really important point about who is actually helping me right now, or are they actually helping me right now?
Yeah. And also be mindful of family, because they're good intentions. Some of them, most of them, hopefully. So just be mindful, because some of them can be enabling, because divorce is not supported the same way grief is. So divorce is supported subjectively, right? You can have someone say, well, why did you stay so long? Or how could you leave? You had such a beautiful house. Like, so you may be mindful of the type of support you're getting from family as well. So that's just my, support is essential in every crisis you have or any stressful event, but just be careful of the ones you hang around with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we wrap up, is there anything that you need to mention or that you would like to say?
Well, I think the only thing that I would like to just reiterate is that you do have the ability to make a choice in how you want to show up and really accept responsibility for where you are in your life. And that's sometimes hard to hear for people because, we don't deserve to be hurt. And a lot of times in divorce, there's like something that's happened that's very hurtful, and nobody deserves that. But also accepting responsibility of, well, I did make this decision to go into here, and I did make the decision to stay, and I did make certain decisions. Like it is a two-way street. It can't just always be on the one person, even though it's really easy to kind of point fingers. So for me, it was very, very, very powerful. And the start of my healing journey, when I was like, I'm just going to accept responsibility for my part in this. And all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's hard. It's hard to hear. It's hard to admit. But when you do, it's like, oh, but now I feel really a lot more empowered, because if I can take responsibility for this, it means I can take responsibility for the next thing. And I can take responsibility for the decisions that I'm making every day. Like you and I were talking about, those micro decisions, those micro moments. I have control over that, of how I respond and how I show up and what I do in the world. So to me, that's very, very empowering and a really amazing first kind of step in the healing journey.
I 100% agree. It's in our workbook. It's the responsibility pie. And if people want to do it right now, you draw a circle and do the percentage. Break it up in a pie. For my own, I had a ex-mother-in-law that caused a lot of problems. So she was 10%, right? Mm-hmm. And then I put my percent because I'm like, yeah, here's but to be honest, when you draw it and you look at it, it's even more like, wow, okay, and everyone varies, mm-hmm. right? But except for maybe the most severe cases of maybe domestic violence and stuff, most of us have some percentage of responsibility mm-hmm. in the breakdown of the marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it is hard to say like, oh yeah, I was responsible for a certain portion of that. But when you do that and see that, then it's a lot easier, I think, to step into your new identity. And you're in that growth mindset. You're in that possibility mindset.
Yeah, it's a good one. So we ask everyone before we wrap up is a question. For someone who's just separated, whether they left or were left, what advice would you give them to help them navigate those overwhelming early days?
Well, I think number one, we talked about the self-nurturing piece. So really giving yourself and allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to feel the feelings and know that all the feelings are totally normal. And it's a variety of different emotions, and they can drop in inopportune times. And it's the range of emotions, like everything from the negative, quote unquote, to the positive. Like there's also pieces of us that feel very relieved or happy or excited or anticipatory about what's happening. And so it's just really allowing all those emotions to come up and giving ourselves time and space to really feel through them. And getting the support you need is really, really critical, because it's very easy to just sit at home and curl up and just like do the motions that you need to do to get through the day and then not reach out for help. But there's so much support out there. It's very needed. We talked about that, Karen, about the different types of support that you need and different levels of support. And I think right now, more than ever, there's a lot of divorce support out there for lots of different types of people. You have a community that there's lots of coaches, lots of therapists, there's lots of, online resources available. And I think that is so important, just to reach out and not feel alone and have someone that's helping you just move through some of the muck and the stuckiness of that initial kind of divorce situation.
That's so true. I think about my mother who divorced in the 70s, what support systems she had, right? None, right? Her own family blamed her for the divorce. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of stigma back then. So think of how far we've come, and we still have more work to do. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm thinking 8 years ago, I don't think there was many divorce podcasts mm-hmm. or, might have been a few books, but we've gotten stronger and stronger. And so you're right. There's lots of ways to get support now. It's needed, actually.
Yeah.
So what do you have? I know you have a workbook, and where can people get in touch with you and all that good stuff?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I do have a workbook. It's called Up Level Your Life. It's like a journaling and planning workbook. So you can, I put it out in the new year, but you can start planning your life anytime. And so again, it kind of talks about some of those, like you said, Karen, those aspirational goals, and just starts you envisioning the kind of life that you want to live, how you want to feel, how you want to show up in the world. So it kind of takes you through a lot of different journaling and reflective questions and some planning tools as well. So you can get that on Amazon. And if anyone wants to connect, my website is createyourbestchapter.com. And that's probably the best way to get in touch with me.
Awesome. As usual, Vera, it was great. We always have such great, insightful conversations. So I learned from you, and loved having you on.
Thank you so much, Karen, for the opportunity. I do enjoy our conversations as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you for joining today's discussion with our divorce expert. Check out the show notes for more about our guest. If you're finding value in our podcast, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our YouTube channel at Divorce Workshop. Share your questions, comments, or guest suggestions. We'd love to hear from you. For a comprehensive divorce guide, check out our Just Separated workbook on Amazon worldwide. This workbook covers everything from emotions and co-parenting to finances, legal insights, and recovery. A must-have for anyone navigating separation or divorce.